Hey everyone, I'm Dave Dudley here with the Coach's Corner, where you can always find me on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and my website at daviddudley.com. Today I want to discuss pretty much just a theory that I want you to think about, which is it possible that on certain lakes our lure disappears into silt, mud, and rock at certain situations? So here's what I'm getting at. If I'm dragging a football jig and I got a 3/4 ounce, 1 ounce jig, and we've all done this before. You're dragging, it's silty, and then all of a sudden you feel a little rock, and all of a sudden your lure comes up into sight. I think a lot of times our lure, when we throw it out there, it's so buried in the silt that bass is following it. I mean, seriously, who wants to go down and get a mouthful of silt? Who wants to go down and get a mouthful of grass when you're dragging your jig? So a lot of times when you're dragging it, I think we end up dragging it in silt, and then we hit a little rough spot. That's when that jig pops up out of the mud and that bass comes over and goes thunk. Another thing I want to just kind of get you to think about is this. We all know a drop shot is like one of the most deadly techniques out there. You know, if it wasn't for the drop shot, I probably wouldn't have won the last 2 Angler of the Years that I've won. You know, up until that point, I was less, y'all bunch of West Coast drop shot gurus. I ain't doing that. I don't have to do that. By golly, I wish I would have done it earlier. But I think one of the reasons a drop shot gets so dominant is because of this. It's a lure that's always above the silt line. It's a lure that's always above the grass. It's a lure that's always above the rock. It's a visible lure that's always up above whatever the bottom contour may be. So when you are fishing a drop shot, it's not necessarily buried in the silt. It's not buried in the grass. So this is just a little thought, a theory that says, hey, what could I do to maybe adjust it from getting lost in the silt, from getting lost in the grass? Probably the number one thing when you're fishing Texas rigs, dragging football jigs, anything that could bury up and be lost in those kind of situations is maybe lighten up on your jig. Maybe lighten up on your Texas rig. This is just a little food for thought. I've often pondered this. I can't prove it. I can't disprove it. But I know in my head that it has to happen some. Thanks for joining me this week on Dudley's Coaching Corner.